Hi everyone, before watching the video, please give me a like and subscribe. Thank you very much. I accidentally brought home a medical report about cancer that I had used as a prop for a film. During dinner, my contract wife, Leah, suddenly asked me, "Do you only have a few months left?" I assumed she was asking about our one-year marriage contract. So, I answered casually, "About 2 months left, I reckon." Leah went silent. A few days later, I quietly went abroad for a 3-month study program. Upon my return, I heard from friends that Leah had been searching the entire country for her terminally ill husband. Everyone was helping her look. She claimed she wanted to see me alive one last time and finally introduce our marriage to both families. I had just ordered a massive feast to go and was about to enjoy a heavy meal when I ran into Leah, whom I hadn't seen in months. Suddenly, she appeared right in front of me. I looked up at her in shock. To put things in perspective, after being married for over a year, Leah and I rarely saw each other. She was always cold toward me. Sharing a dinner table was an even rarer occurrence. I only ever heard from her assistant, "You're just a contract husband. Don't overthink things that are none of your business for these 2 years. When the time comes, take the money and leave quietly." Someone like Ms. Leah isn't someone you can social climb your way toward. Leah just stood there. From her hair to her heels, she exuded a golden, regal elegance that stars admired. Someone like me, who had struggled for 10 years, could barely touch the hem of her garment. She was truly out of my league. Consequently, I was always very brief with her, focusing only on money and resources, never asking about things I shouldn't care about. Leah and her assistant must have rushed straight from the office. She hadn't even changed yet. She was dressed in high-end professional attire, standing right across from me. She watched me silently as I was absorbed in my cooking. A drop of hot pot broth nearly splashed onto her. Then, she made her move. Suddenly, she asked me exactly how many months I had left. I looked at her with suspicion. Leah was usually a workaholic. For her, time was money. Had she really left work specifically to find me and ask about our marriage contract? Was she worried I wouldn't leave? Or was she embarrassed to have someone like me in her house? I carefully calculated the time and tried to reassure her. "It will be very soon, just about 2 months left. Don't worry, Ms. Leah. I'll be leaving on my own early so I don't cause any trouble for you." Leah fell silent after hearing that. A long while later, when she spoke again, her voice was thick with a delicate, unreadable emotion. During this final period of time, do you have any other wishes?" Since signing a marriage contract, I had received plenty of resources from her. I shook my head and said, "No, I don't have any other requests for you." I wasn't sure if it was just my imagination, but I thought I saw Leah's eyelashes tremble slightly after I said those words. Lately, Leah has been acting very strangely. I couldn't even catch a glimpse of her for weeks before, but now she's at home every single day. This morning, I had just woken up and finished replying to a message from my agent. When I looked up, I saw Leah sitting in the living room, quietly watching me. I was startled for a second. Then, I forced a smile and asked, "Ms. Leah, aren't you going to the office today?" Leah shook her head. "The company's affairs aren't that important anymore." I recalled the news my agent told me this morning about Julian, Leah's white moonlight ex, returning to the country. I glanced at the wine bottle on the coffee table and nodded understandingly. Leah's assistant had been very specific with me from the start. Why did Leah ask me to sign a 1-year marriage contract? It was because my face was a 70% match to Julian's. Julian was a minor actor who had skyrocketed to fame through a web drama a year ago. Word was that Leah had spent a fortune to fund that show. However, as soon as Julian became famous, he broke up with her and fled abroad. Leah only married me to spite him. It's quite impressive, really, the love games of the wealthy. Working-class people like us are just collateral. Since I had just finished filming a drama about living with a mother-in-law, I was taking it easy. While cleaning my room, I suddenly remembered that I had accidentally taken some props home from the set last time. The prop was a medical report for a malignant tumor. I turned my bag inside out, but I couldn't find it anywhere. I figured the cleaning lady had probably seen it and tossed it out as trash. It wouldn't be a major issue if the prop disappeared. I just informed the director. To avoid disturbing Leah and her thoughts of her white moonlight in the living room, I stayed in my room, snacking and watching dramas. I accidentally choked on my drink while laughing at a scene which triggered a violent, uncontrollable coughing fit. Suddenly, there was an urgent knock at the door. Leah's anxious voice came from the other side. "Is it getting serious again? Are you in pain? Where does it hurt?" I was coughing too hard to breathe, let alone speak. Leah immediately burst into the room. I happened to be doubled over. When I looked up at her, my eyes were watering from the strain. To an outsider, I looked like I was in absolute agony. Leah, who was usually the pillar of calm, suddenly looked panicked. She called for her assistant while looking at me with wide eyes. "Don't worry, I'll have the assistant take you to the hospital right now." I was genuinely baffled. I shot her a confused look and managed to wheeze out, "What's the point of going to the hospital for a bit of choked water? Is it really no use anymore?" she whispered. Her voice trembled. "Is there truly no way to turn back the clock for these last 2 months?" I didn't want to face her. She remained standing there, motionless. I had no idea what was going through her head. Glancing at my tablet where the drama was still playing, I felt my rare vacation time was far too precious to waste. Clear in my throat, I broke the strange atmosphere. "Ms. Leah, if there's nothing else, I'd like to rest in my room alone. Is that okay?" She seemed to snap out of it, but she kept staring at me. Her usually cold features showed a rare, profound sadness. When Leah knocked on my door again later that evening, I felt a bit helpless. I had seen more of her today than I usually did in an entire week. When I opened the door, the scent of alcohol on her was overpowering. Her hair, which she usually kept meticulously styled, was a mess. "Do you have time tonight?" she asked. "I want to take you to a friend's dinner party. We've been married a long time, and my friends still haven't met you." I looked at her in total surprise. We had been married for over a year, and I had always known my place. At best, I was a substitute who shouldn't be seen at the negotiation table. Wasn't she afraid of losing face by introducing me to her circle? Or was it because Julian had returned to China today? She wanted to humiliate me in front of her friends to spark Julian's jealousy. I thought about it for a moment and asked her point blank, "Will Julian be there today?" Leah's expression flickered with a moment of confusion. After a brief pause, she nodded. I patted her shoulder understandingly. "Got it. I'll cooperate." Most of Leah's friends were powerful heiresses from prominent families. The outfits they wore alone were worth more than my salary from an entire film series. As Leah and I stepped through the door, all eyes turned toward us. A wave of judgmental gazes washed over me. They seemed like a very difficult crowd to please. Leah walked briskly ahead of me. I nearly collided with her when she stopped abruptly. Then, I felt someone gently take my hand. This was our first physical contact in the long time we had been married. Leah's palm was slightly cold, which, combined with her expressionless face, piqued my curiosity. I wondered what it looked like when someone so organized became completely consumed by their emotions. We had only moved a few steps when a deep, magnetic voice suddenly rang out from behind us. "Sorry, everyone. I caught a late flight, and I'm behind schedule." It was Julian, with a face that was a 70% match to mine and wearing a simple white striped suit. He looked incredibly handsome. In contrast, my red and black outfit made me look like some flashy street thug. Sensing the situation, I quickly and tactfully withdrew my hand from Leah's grasp. I didn't want Julian to misunderstand that we were a real couple and ruin Leah's chances with him. Leah, walking just ahead of me, suddenly turned back. She seemed to let out a bitter, almost inaudible smile. "Do you still hate me that much?" she whispered. Even though I knew Leah was a prominent figure, seeing her now, seated in the center and surrounded by wealthy socialites, I was still struck by the scene. As expected, wealth brings a natural air of authority. I intentionally found a seat in an inconspicuous corner. Not far away, Leah calmly fielded the tedious questions thrown at her by the people nearby. They kept glancing toward me. In fact, when Leah realized I wasn't sitting by her side earlier, she had looked dazed for a moment. She opened her mouth as if to speak. "Ethan," I wanted to ask, but after 30 seconds, she went silent, turned away, and ignored me again. Leah was someone used to handling major events year-round. Her face rarely betrayed any change in emotion. But right now, she was clearly in a foul mood. Her brow was cold as she slowly sipped the wine in her glass. Her entire being seemed enveloped in a layer of frost from the inside out. I subconsciously glanced over at Julian. Perhaps no one else had noticed it, but I was constantly monitoring the dynamic between him and Leah. Julian had greeted everyone present, pointedly ignoring only Leah. The rumors online about Leah and Julian were likely true. Sloane, the friend closest to Leah, took advantage of the fact that no one was paying attention to nudge her shoulder. "Why haven't you two found a chance to clear the air yet?" she teased. Leah knitted her brows in annoyance. "Not yet." Sloane didn't seem to notice Leah's lack of enthusiasm. She just gave a cold snort and a laugh. "It's not like you to be so indecisive. You better be careful. Someone might take advantage of this and spread rumors." Leah looked up and glared at her. Sloane immediately shrugged and changed her tune. "Who has the guts to stand at the foot of your bed? I'm just joking with you." Before Leah could respond, Sloane suddenly looked around, puzzled. "By the way, where is that husband you brought? Why haven't I seen him?" Leah followed Sloane's gaze and frowned when she saw the empty chair. "At that moment, I was hiding in the restroom. It wasn't that I didn't want to come out, but the scene outside was just too cringe-worthy." Outside the restroom door, Julian and Mr. Chun were smoking. I overheard their lively conversation. They clearly didn't realize someone else was in there. "You and Leah are still having trouble, aren't you?" Mr. Chin asked. "By the way, women like Leah are hard to read, but she's certainly dedicated to you. Those husbands she finds on purpose all look exactly like you. Though, I don't think that guy is any better than you." Julian whispered back while touching up his appearance in the mirror. "Just let her be for a while. Once I'm feeling better, I'll just wave my hand and she'll come running. You should be careful, though. You've been at war for a long time. What if one day Leah loses interest? Where else will you find a cash cow that's so obsessed with you?" Julian interrupted impatiently. "How is that possible? Who else could she like besides me? Isn't her new husband just a model of me anyway?" I sat there knowing that Leah's new husband, the one modeled after him, was currently hiding in the stall. The room fell silent. I gripped the door handle, debating whether to open it. They had been talking for so long that my legs were actually starting to ache from standing there. But if I opened the door now, the three of us facing each other would be incredibly awkward. The trade-off was too high. I decided I'd rather endure standing a bit longer. Later, I'd have to ask Leah for a little extra compensation. After all, I was paying a heavy price to avoid embarrassing her white moonlight. Not long after, I heard someone knocking on the restroom door. Leah's voice drifted in from outside. "Hello, is someone in there?" Both Julian and I froze. Xander looked at Julian with admiration and snorted. "You disappear for a few minutes, and she comes looking for you, all worried." "See?" Julian couldn't hide his pride and raised an eyebrow. "I told you, if she doesn't love me, who else could she possibly love?" Then Leah spoke again. "Hello, is my husband in there? He hasn't come out for a long time. I'm worried something happened to him." The restroom went silent for a beat. The stall door creaked, and someone pushed it open. I bravely stepped out. Julian stood there, stunned, as we stared at each other. I gave a sheepish smile. "What a coincidence. You're here too." Julian's face went pale for a split second. Then, he quickly stormed out. When he encountered Leah, he intentionally slammed his shoulder into hers as he brushed past. I followed them out, taking the chance to wink at Leah, who was waiting right there. "He's already mad. Why aren't you hurrying to chase him? Am I not being the perfect wingman?" I thought. But Leah's expression as she looked at me was one of pure, knitted confusion. "What is wrong with you?" she asked. I avoided her gaze immediately. "Did you forget the conditions? I'm still young and healthy. Don't go assuming I'm just some frail guy who needs protecting." Sloane, who was trailing behind Leah, suddenly interjected with curiosity. "What conditions are we talking about? Is a twitching eyelid considered a medical symptom?" I only just now took notice of Sloane. I had seen her before. She was Leah's childhood friend. Right now, she looked effortlessly elegant, leaning lazily against the wall with her willow-arched brows and charming demeanor. I'd heard she had a revolving door of boyfriends. Today, she had brought a particularly unique one to the dinner. He didn't just have better looks than me. He was a university student. Amidst the sea of extravagant formal wear, he wore only simple jeans and a sweater. He looked plain, yet somehow stood out. Leah didn't offer much of an explanation. She simply replied to Sloane, "You wouldn't understand." Then she turned back to look at me. Truth be told, I didn't understand either. As a contract husband, I knew the golden rule. Don't ask questions about things you shouldn't care about. When we returned to the room, a crowd was already swarming around Julian. As Leah walked back in, Xander deliberately raised his voice. Julian, stop crying. That kind of woman isn't worth it. The room fell silent. No one else dared to breathe, let alone offend Leah. Xander felt a chill run down his spine, but despite his embarrassment, he doubled down. Even if you two are having a disagreement, does she really have to go out of her way to upset you like this? She knows damn well how much pride you have. Suddenly, a soft voice cut through the tension. Isn't it a bit much to talk like that? I was stunned. Following the sound, I saw Sloane's quiet boyfriend, Hogan, clutching his wine glass nervously. Xander's face darkened, and just as he was about to snap back, Sloane grabbed Hogan by the shoulder. She lazily bit down on her cigarette, her words sharp and dismissive. He's right. My husband is right here. What are you people doing crying over here for? I was shocked. I instinctively turned to look at Leah and saw that her gaze toward Xander and Julian was terrifyingly cold. After a moment, she spoke. Security, if anyone else causes a scene, throw them out. At those words, it wasn't just me who was floored. Even Julian lifted his head, staring at Leah with eyes rimmed with red. The dinner ended on a sour note. The four of us, Leah, myself, Sloane, and Hogan, ended up facing each other. Sloane still had her arm around Hogan's shoulder. Hogan struggled awkwardly to push her hand away, but she wouldn't budge. The money you agreed to pay was only for me to pose as your boyfriend and meet your parents, Hogan whispered. There wasn't supposed to be anything else. I turned to look at them with suspicion. Leah also shot a curious look at Sloane. You're actually taking a boyfriend home to meet your parents? Sloane was a romantic, or from another perspective, cold-hearted. She usually drifted freely through a garden of men, but she had never brought anyone home. As she used to say, meeting parents was too formal, and she was only in it for fun. Sloane coughed heavily, signaling Leah not to expose her. Yeah, well, my parents are really pushing me to get married. She wanted me to bring a boyfriend home. I just happened to run into him while he was working a part-time job, because he was short on cash. I'm paying him 30,000 renminbi to play the part and meet my parents. Leah looked at Sloane with growing disdain, her eyes as cold as if she were looking at a stray animal. As Leah pulled me toward the car, I glanced at Hogan through the window and sighed. It wasn't that I wanted to meddle, but in a way, Hogan and I were cut from the same cloth. However, I couldn't afford to offend Sloane or Leah for his sake. It was just a pity to see such a good kid getting reeled in by a socialite's whims. Back at the house, the door had just clicked shut. I turned around and nearly bumped into Leah, who was standing perfectly still in the dark living room. Leah was clearly in a bad mood today. Usually, she was incredibly self-disciplined, rarely touching cigarettes or alcohol. But now, she was standing so close to me that the faint scent of her perfume, mingled with the smell of tobacco, enveloped us. I didn't dare move. My heart began to race against my will. After a long silence, I heard Leah's voice, slightly hoarse. Ethan, I have something to tell you. The atmosphere felt bizarre. An inexplicable nervousness washed over me. I also have a few things I need to say to you, I replied, remembering my plans. Suddenly, her phone rang, cutting her off. After a moment of hesitation, she answered. It was her assistant. Leah's brows shot up. What did you say? The funding was cut. She rushed toward the door, but stopped abruptly, turned back, and said, Wait for me. I'll be back soon. But as the days passed, Leah never returned. Seeing how busy she was, I didn't want to bother her anymore. I never told her about my application for overseas studies. I felt I still needed to hone my acting skills. Following a friend's advice, I chose to keep a low profile and head abroad for 3 months. As I boarded the plane, I had it all planned out. After these 3 months of study, when I returned, the terms of our marriage contract would be nearly up. Since Leah wouldn't see me around the house, she'd likely find the distance refreshing. Once the divorce was settled, I would focus entirely on my career. While studying abroad, I maintained my frugal habits and swapped my SIM card for a local one. For 3 consecutive months, it was as if I had isolated myself from the world, dedicating my heart and soul to my studies, until the day I finally returned home. I had just stepped off the plane and turned on my phone, swapping back to my original SIM card. A flood of over 99 missed calls and an avalanche of messages left me speechless for a moment. I had told my parents back in my hometown about studying abroad, but beyond them, I had very few friends. Only those closest to me, along with my agent and management company, knew I was leaving. I had even taken a formal leave of absence. Suddenly, an automated news notification popped up from a public account titled Super Century Entertainment Group. The headline read, "Driven by a profound love and a desperate search for her terminally ill husband, the renowned CEO of Van Shuyen has turned the domestic market upside down just to see her lover one last time." I read the sentence over and over, standing there stunned in the wind. I knew the CEO of Van Shuyen was Leah, but was I understanding this correctly? Did Leah marry someone else? And who was this beloved husband who died of illness referring to? I returned to Leah's villa. Everything was eerily peaceful. All the furniture was exactly as it was before I left. Even a juice box I had finished and forgotten to throw away was still sitting on the table, untouched. I fell silent. It had been 3 months. Surely that juice should have fermented by now. I tried to enter my room to retrieve my bank book, the savings I had scraped together over a decade of work, but the door was locked. Feeling a bit anxious, I walked over to the sofa and sat down. Wine bottles and cigarette butts were scattered everywhere in the living room. It seemed the cleaning lady hadn't been called in months. Left with no choice, I grabbed a broom and started mopping. I decided to clean the house one last time before the contract ended. Just then, the front door opened. It was Leah. It was 2 p.m. Leah was a notorious workaholic. Normally, she'd be buried in meetings at this hour. But today, she was dressed in casual clothes. Her eyes were bloodshot, and her hair was a mess. Leah had always been meticulously clean and disciplined, known for her exquisite makeup and elegant attire, the image of a dignified, cold professional. Seeing her in such a state of disarray made me wonder if her company was on the brink of bankruptcy. Leah took off her coat and looked up, catching my gaze as I sat on the sofa. She froze for a moment. Then, she lowered her head, rubbing her eyes wearily, and let out a forced, self-deprecating laugh. "I haven't slept well in days," she muttered. "I must be hallucinating again." I was at a loss for words. I said, "What hallucination? I'm alive and well." Leah's movement stiffened. She snapped her eyes open, staring at me in a daze. After a beat, she suddenly lunged forward, grabbed a half-empty beer bottle from the table, and downed it. Then she marched toward me. She stared at me intensely, her throat bobbing as she swallowed. The overwhelming smell of alcohol made me realize she was far from sober. Just as I sensed something was wrong, Leah suddenly grabbed my chin, gripping it so hard I felt like I was being crushed. She leaned down and bit my lip forcefully. Where is this woman getting all this energy? I struggled to push her off while trying to snap her out of it. "Leah, I'm fine, really. Hey, wait a second." When she heard my voice, she looked up at me, her eyes terrifyingly bloodshot. Then she squeezed them shut again, her voice incredibly hoarse. "Even if it's a dream, if I can see you in my dreams, let it last a little longer." What an exhausting dream. This is exactly why I hate dealing with drunks. Leah's movements became increasingly desperate, as if she were terrified I would vanish again the next second. Exhausted, I gave up and stopped resisting. But the moment I relaxed, Leah's eyes closed, and she collapsed against me. Panicked, I checked her breathing. Fortunately, she had just fainted from exhaustion. It seemed she hadn't had a proper rest in ages. I was completely demoralized, not knowing why she had suddenly gone mad. I called the cleaning lady to come tidy up. The voice on the other end of the line was frantic. "Yes, I'll be there right away. Right away." I paused for half a second before explaining. "Did Leah tell you I died? We haven't even had a funeral, and I'm living a perfectly good life." The cleaning lady's voice grew even more anxious. Right. I'm coming now." I waited until 8 p.m. The cleaning lady never showed up, and Leah didn't wake up. My room was still locked. I spent the time calling people around me to piece together what had happened. After a while, the picture became clear. Apparently, the cleaning lady had taken a photo of my prop cancer report and told Leah I was terminally ill. I fell silent, remembering the tumor report prop I had lost. It turned out she had found it and handed it to Leah. Suddenly, all the strange questions Leah had asked me before finally made sense. I understood everything instantly. It turned out Leah had been asking me how much time I had left to live, not how much time was left on our contract. And I had told her it was only 3 months. Luckily, she had only started posting missing person notices online in the last few days. If I had waited any longer, I suspect I wouldn't have come home to a farewell party, but to my own funeral. When Leah finally woke up, it was past 11 p.m. She opened her eyes and stared at me in a daze for a long time. She rubbed her temples and looked at me again, still bewildered. I gave her a small smile, though I didn't feel much like laughing. "You're finally awake," I said. Leah nodded silently. I kept it brief. "I'm fine. I'm perfectly healthy. I just went abroad to study for 3 months. I wanted to tell you before I left, but you were at the office, and you seemed so busy I didn't want to bother you. That tumor report was just a prop from my last film." Leah froze for several seconds. Her eyelashes fluttered slightly before she spoke again. "A film prop." I took a deep breath. "Yes, I just accidentally brought it home." The room fell into a heavy silence. After a while, Leah repeated in a hoarse voice, "So, you're really not?" "I'm sure." Leah's throat moved as she swallowed, and she looked up at me. She frowned, her eyes fixing on my mouth. "Then why are your lips so swollen?" If I had stayed abroad any longer, I feared Leah would have caused a scene even bigger than my supposed funeral. I explained quickly. "Honey, you've forgotten already, haven't you?" Leah was stunned for a moment. Her cold, composed brow suddenly flushed a deep red. She let out 2 awkward coughs. Getting so out of control while drunk, and while she was paying me, no less, was more than just a minor slip-up. I gritted my teeth inwardly. Forget it. Now that all the misunderstandings were cleared up, I brought up the contract. I rushed back this time to finalize the divorce. "Our 2-year marriage contract has expired. Are you free tomorrow?" "No," she replied flatly. "I don't have time." Leah answered me immediately. "What about the day after tomorrow? Or the day after that?" "None of them are available." "You know how busy I am with work," she added, looking directly at me. I fell silent. Honestly, I wasn't that anxious about it. I had only rushed back because I assumed Leah was the one who wanted the divorce finalized. After all, didn't she still want to pursue Julian? However, reflecting on the recent rumors, a strange feeling began to settle in. I could sense that Leah seemed to harbor an unexpectedly intense emotion for me. But wasn't I just Julian's substitute? When we first got married, I'd be lying if I said I didn't have certain feelings for her. After all, Leah has the kind of face that makes it impossible for any man to remain indifferent. We had been together for over a year. Even if it was just a charade, it was inevitable for some spark to flicker. But time and again, I forced myself to face the truth. Leah and I belong to different worlds. She already has someone she can't forget. I could fall in love with anyone, but the one thing I refuse to do is make my love look pathetic. So, I intentionally told myself not to care about her, never to ask about things that didn't concern me. Any spark that appeared, I crushed instantly. I couldn't tell what Leah was trying to express to me right now. Was it just a habit formed after a year of working together under a contract? Or was it pure excitement because she viewed me as Julian's replacement? I couldn't accept either. So, I gave Leah a faint smile and said, "Then try to find a gap in your schedule. We should finish the divorce formalities quickly. I won't disturb you during these days. I'll rent a place to live on my own first." When I saw Julian again, it was because he had taken the initiative to come to the house to find me. He looked me up and down, then took a confident sip of tea before speaking slowly. "Do you know why Leah married you?" I nodded calmly, repeating what she had told me. "I know. It's because I look a bit like you. She used me as your substitute." Julian was stunned for a moment. Then he said softly, "Since you know all that, why are you still staying by her side and bothering me? You need to understand that if I'm just a little bit nicer to Leah, she'll come running back to me in a heartbeat." "I know," I replied honestly. "That's why we're getting divorced in a few days." Julian clearly didn't expect me to be so compliant. He opened his mouth to speak, then snapped it shut, utterly a loss for words. Julian didn't know what to say next. After a moment, he just gave a cold snort, then stopped bothering her. He was just about to leave when he opened the door and ran right into Leah standing there. It was obvious she had been listening, though I had no idea for how long. I felt a wave of secondhand embarrassment for both of them. Julian's eyes suddenly brimmed with tears as he looked at Leah. "Leah, I know I was wrong. I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have gone abroad. As long as you come back to me, I promise I'll never run away again, okay?" Leah knitted her brows and took a sharp step back. "Mr. Julian, please have some self-respect. Don't say things that will lead others to misunderstand. Julian froze. He had always been arrogant, and this was the first time he had ever swallowed his pride to admit a mistake. Being mercilessly rejected like that sent him instantly into a rage. What do you mean, Leah? I've already apologized. What more do you want? Leah looked at him with icy composure. Is that what you're asking me? What exactly are you trying to achieve by continuing to harass me? You were the one who intentionally dragged me into the news cycle just to generate traffic for yourself. I chose not to call you out to save you some face. What else could you possibly want? Then she turned her gaze toward me, the one standing there intently eavesdropping on the drama. Ethan, are you just going to stand there and watch the show? You left before I could finish what I wanted to say to you last time. Today, I want to clear everything up. Listening to Leah, I realized this was a massive, scandalous reveal. As it turned out, the investors for Julian's web drama had pulled out halfway through production. The director had invited Julian to a dinner party specifically to solicit sponsorships. To put it bluntly, it was a move to attract investors through less than official means. Coincidentally, Leah had been at that same party and witnessed Julian being harassed by a wealthy, middle-aged woman. Leah came to Julian's rescue and conveniently covered the investment for the entire production. Leah had always maintained a reputation for being strictly professional, unlike other high-profile figures who were constantly surrounded by pretty boys. Because of her clean lifestyle and this sudden act of generosity, rumors began to swirl that Julian was her white moonlight. Many people tried to target Leah, plotting against her using Julian as leverage. Out of sheer arrogance, Julian never bothered to clarify the situation. He let the rumors spread until, as time went on, he even began to believe them himself. After all, if Leah didn't like him, why would she do this? Why would she pour so much money into a mediocre web drama with a terrible reputation for a guy who wasn't a relative or even a close acquaintance? Leah, if you don't like me, why didn't you ever take the initiative to clear up these rumors? Julian asked, but this time, Leah didn't spare his feelings. She looked at him with an icy gaze. Do you know why I never bothered to clarify anything? Because normally, any celebrity who offends me disappears from the industry entirely. Julian, you truly should thank yourself for having that face. My eyes widened in shock. After going in circles, it turned out we were both substitutes. Leah looked at my surprised expression with a hint of amusement. She ruffled my hair and asked, do you remember the first time we met on a plane? Of course, I remembered. In fact, after I found out who she really was, I'd been anxious about it for a long time. Leah and I first met when she was returning from studying abroad. At the time, I was, let's just say, a bit of a free spirit. Seeing how beautiful she was, I intentionally struck up a conversation. I told her I was actually a star, just an 18th-tier celebrity that nobody knew yet. Leah was reading a financial newspaper, treating her words as if they were made of gold. Then, I pointed to a skyscraper piercing the clouds and boasted, see that? That's my dad's company. Leah finally reacted. She gave me a strange look, then pointed to an even taller building right next to it. What a coincidence, she said calmly. The building next to it is my father's company. I had laughed it off internally at the time. I was just boasting without any preparation, making things up as I went along. But she was even more extreme than me. Everyone knew the tallest building in the center of West City belonged to the Van Schuyen Group. Wait, are you saying you're the daughter of the chairman of Van Schuyen? I joked. Later, after we landed, I realized she really was the daughter of the chairman of Van Schuyen. At the time, Leah saw me waiting for a bus with her at the exit. Her driver arrived first. Leah turned to me and asked, I'll give you a lift. Let's go together. Coincidentally, I'm heading to your company later to meet Annie Shun. I assume you're her son. I gave a dry laugh and said no, but Leah just offered a faint smile. Her face was so beautiful it could make any man lose his mind. In an instant, my common sense vanished. Annie Shun is very kind to my father, she continued. It's fine, I'll take you home. In the next breath, I blurted out, all right, let's go. But when we arrived at her company's entrance, I refused to get out. I told her I was hungry and tricked Leah into a nearby shop for a bowl of wontons. Leah had clearly never eaten anything like that before. She ate with such elegance, slowly slicing her fried chicken breast with a knife. I was stunned. Afterward, she told me, thank you for taking me to eat such delicious food. I smiled and replied, exactly. Good food makes you feel better, especially fried chicken. Leah smiled back. Her mood truly had improved. Can we go see Anishin now? She asked. I went silent for a moment. Then I said, wait a bit. I'm not full yet. Let's go get afternoon tea. So, lunch turned into tea time. By the time we walked out, it was dark, just as I had planned. I turned to Leah with a fake apologetic look. Oops, it's too late now. Let's meet Anishin tomorrow. Let's go see a movie first. Leah hesitated for a long time before finally nodding. I didn't find out until much later. The day I met Leah was exactly 2 weeks after her parents and brother had passed away. She had been furious with herself because she hadn't wanted to take over her father's company. She had missed the final phone call from their car. They had originally bought plane tickets to Mexico, intending to surprise Leah after she had been abroad for 3 years without returning home. But they were in a car accident on the way. Leah's phone had rung for a long time, but she never answered. The day she returned to the country, she was supposed to go meet the remains of the most important people in her life. It was her duty, but instead, she happened to run into me, someone who was simply captivated by her beauty. I pestered her from morning until night. At the very least, I was witty enough to keep her entertained. A young lady who was used to fine dining, she actually had a great time eating street food skewer for the first time. She completely forgot the nightmare and the pain of losing her family for a moment. She suddenly realized she shouldn't miss out on life. There were things she had never seen or explored, things she should try if she hadn't already. So, things shouldn't be the way they were now. For a long while after that, I didn't see Leah again. I focused on my own filming, though no matter how hard I tried, my career was still a mess. The next time I heard about Leah was on Weibo. First, I saw that she had reclaimed her father's shares and made tens of thousands of dollars at a young age as the CEO of the Vanshian Group. Then, I saw the scandal between her and Julian. Later, I ran into Leah a few times at dinner parties. She sat at the center, surrounded by stars. I was there with Director Chun, just sitting in corner. Out of the blue, Leah contacted me. She said she wanted to sign a 2-year marriage contract with me. $6 million up front and $8 million upon completion. Hearing such an incredible offer, I asked her assistant just to be safe, why does your boss need to sign this marriage contract with me? Leah's assistant, who also knew about the scandal with Julian, told me not to overthink it. She said Leah was only with me because my face looked like Julian's. I can't describe the disappointment I felt. After all, Leah and I had only met once. How could someone like her ever love me? In truth, even after we got married, I couldn't help but hold on to a sliver of hope. Leah's face was, quite literally, my ideal aesthetic. But after the wedding, she was always so cold toward me. Gradually, my hope died. I decided to just do my job well. I understood clearly that our relationship was nothing more than a transaction. After learning the details from Leah, I felt a spot in my heart flutter a bit too fast. I thought maybe it was just because I was in a good mood. Then, I belatedly asked her, does that mean you fell in love with me at first sight? Leah was silent for a moment before denying it. That's not true. I felt a pang of disappointment. Then she continued, actually, the reason I signed the marriage contract with you in the beginning was because I wanted to do all the things I had never tried before in my own life. I wanted to experience life one more time. I sought you out because you were interesting, and I hadn't fallen in love yet. At first, I thought I'd get bored after 2 years. But then, I inexplicably started caring about you more and more, until I found out you only had 2 months to live. It was only then that she realized some relationships only reveal their depth when a massive storm hits. Looking at the surface that had been exposed, she realized this feeling wasn't just habitual companionship. It was love, a love she only recognized when she was on the verge of losing it. Hearing this, I looked at Leah, speechless. Then why didn't you tell me sooner? Why did you insist on making these mistakes? Wouldn't it have been better if we cleared this up earlier? Leah cleared her throat awkwardly. I thought you were planning to celebrate getting away from me. Sloan later told me. I was wrong to ask you to sign that contract. It made you mistakenly believe I viewed you as a commodity rather than a partner to be respected. And your attitude toward me was always so reluctant to pay me any mind. Were you that anxious to break up with me? Leah asked. For instance, at that dinner party last time, you weren't even willing to sit with me. I fell into a strange silence. I began to wonder if my moral compass was set too low. Why did I accept it? Once I knew I could get what I wanted by signing that marriage contract, all I could think about was the joy of becoming wealthy. I never once thought about respect or a lack thereof. After a moment, I said to Leah, please tell Sloane she's overthinking it. Next time there's a deal this good, tell her to come find me again. Leah knitted her brows and looked at me, puzzled. I laughed twice. No, just kidding. Julian, who had been ignored for a long time, stared at Leah in a daze. A moment later, his eyes turned red. He called Leah trash under his breath and stormed out the door. My luggage was still downstairs. I had originally planned to pack up and leave Leah's house today. Who knew so many things would happen so suddenly? Leah stood across from me, blocking the door, patiently waiting for me to finish my thoughts. Are we still getting divorced? I asked. Leah looked at me with an amused expression. What do you think? I thought about it and said, but you haven't paid the remaining $8 million yet. If we don't divorce, I'll feel a bit of a loss. Leah laughed out of pure exasperation. Fine, we won't divorce, and you can still have the $8 million. No problem, right? I nodded and said, deal. Leah repeated my words with a look of pure disbelief. Oh, really? Why do you sound so reluctant about it? I gave her a mischievous grin. Why shouldn't I be? After all, you were the one originally planning a memorial service for me. Later that evening, Sloane unexpectedly showed up at Leah's house, bringing Hogan along. When she saw me, Sloane looked genuinely shocked. You're not dead yet. I'm finally not a ghost in your eyes anymore. Want to pinch me and check? I shot back. While Sloane and Leah were talking in the living room, I pulled Hogan into the kitchen for a chat. Thinking about Sloane's reputation, I warned him with a bit of hesitation. You're still young. Be careful not to let yourself get played emotionally. Hogan understood exactly what I meant and smiled. I know what you're trying to say. I know all about Sloane's history. I raised an eyebrow, and Hogan nodded. I know she's a bit of a scumbag when it comes to relationships. I also know she was lying when she said she just wanted me to pose as her boyfriend for her parents. Hogan's eyes were clear and pure, as if they held stars within them. But I can't help myself if this is what I like, he admitted. The lazy players need to be taught a lesson sometimes. Don't worry, I know what I'm getting into. I didn't say anything more. I just gave him a supportive pat on the shoulder. Being young is a gift. It gives you the courage to move forward and say you like someone simply because you do. As he said, players sometimes need to meet their match. Everyone has the right to choose their own path. Whether it ends well or poorly, others have no right to interfere. At dinner, seeing Sloane still lingering, I looked at her and grumbled, don't you have a home of your own to go to? I was looking at her like she was a stray animal now, so my tone was particularly blunt. Sloane played innocent. Don't you know what today is? I looked at Leah with suspicion. She simply pointed to the calendar nearby. I had just returned from abroad, and with so much happening, I had completely lost track. Today was the eve of the new year. Sloane continued. Ever since the accident, I've come here every year to celebrate New Year's with Leah. If I didn't show up this year, who would she have? Leah snorted at Sloane. I don't need you anymore. I'll be spending my time with him. Just as the two of them were about to start bickering, Hogan and Leah quickly stepped in to play peacemakers. Outside the window, fireworks erupted right on the stroke of midnight, lighting up every corner of the sky. Whether it was the noisy Sloane and me, or the four of us together, whether it was Julian crying sadly somewhere downstairs, or anyone else struggling with life at this very moment, everyone looked up at the fireworks above their heads at the same time. The brilliant light illuminated this vast world. For a brief moment, it felt as though the world had pressed a pause button. No matter how bumpy the journey has been or how many mistakes were made, the path to the future stretches out from the heights, leading straight to our feet. Life is full of splendor. Once the mist clears, a brilliant tomorrow awaits.